You are live.
Yay!
Hello, my name is Angelica Corral with What in the World Events, and today we have my amigo, Mr. Jose Angel Pereira Ruimbic, and I'm so excited to hear about Venezuela. This is Hispanic Heritage Month, and I'm featuring our Latinos from all over the world. And today's special day is for Jose. So, Jose, I'm excited to hear because I know you know a lot of the history and a lot of what's going on now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
let's
Well,
start off by talking about you. What it was like to be Jose in Venezuela as a child.
well, for me, Venezuela, I grew up in Venezuela. It was great. By the way, uh, when I decided to write my book, the original book included all my childhood in Venezuela, but it
Uh-huh.
was really long. And I remember one lady from here from LinkedIn that I'm not gonna name her today, but she knows who I'm talking about. One day she told me, "But a book of 600 pages, nobody's gonna read it. So why don't you divide it and you do a trilogy?" So she recommended me to do a trilogy, and that's what I'm gonna do. So my third book is gonna talk about my childhood in Venezuela because I grew up in Venezuela. I did like a combination during my childhood between here in the US and Venezuela. Let me say why. Because my dad was working in the oil and gas, and he
Mhm.
was assigned here to do his oil and gas degree, petroleum engineer, here in
Mhm.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I came here to the US when I had 5 years,
Mm.
and we went back to Venezuela when I was 12. So when I went to Venezuela when I was 12, I we came to a neighborhood, an oil field camp in
Mhm.
Venezuela called San Tomé. For the audience that doesn't know, Venezuela, I always talk about this. The Venezuela during those years, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and maybe until the 90s, was a very wealthy country because it's an oil and gas country, and
Mhm.
and was the second producer of oil of the world. So was
Wow.
Saudi Arabia, and then was Venezuela. The second was Venezuela. The second
Nice.
most larger producer of oil of the world was Venezuela by that time. So during those years, in the 50s, the 60s, 70s, and maybe the 80s, there was a lot of American companies operating in Venezuela.
Okay.
And the way this oil and gas company operated is that they did operation in the oil field, and they created neighborhoods beside for their workers.
Mhm.
Those neighborhoods, I was not aware. Today I'm aware because what they do was they took the blueprints of the neighborhoods of here in the U.S., and they did a replica in Venezuela. So the people that was working in San Tomé, that is in
Uh-huh.
the southern area of Venezuela,
Mhm.
uh, there was from Texas and from Louisiana. And basically, they were from Austin. People that they came there basically were from Austin. So
Uh-huh.
when you go to San Tome, and when I came back, when I came here to the U.S., back to live here in Texas, the first time I went to Austin, I had a big deja vu because it was exactly similar of the camp where I grew up. Because it makes sense. This guy, what they do is they did the houses, the streets, the landscape, the everything similar like here in the U.S. So those neighborhoods were like very typical American, and all the costumes were Americans because were Americans running that. So I grew up there, and we celebrated Halloween, we celebrated Thanksgiving, we celebrated the Christmas carols, uh, 4th of July. So was very very American customs. So I
Mhm.
grew up there, and the school was bilingual. So the way was that when you get to the ninth grade, you
Mhm.
had a choice. If you were Venezuelan like me, you had to stay in Venezuela and go to study in a Venezuelan high school, or if
Mhm.
you were American, they were returned here to the U.S. So I'm telling this big story because this is something wonderful that when I came back, when I was released 2 years ago, it's gonna be in October, 2 years that I came back. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, this October 1st is gonna be my second anniversary. When I came back, I begin to go to social media. I begin to post things in Facebook, and they begin to appear a lot of friends in Facebook. You know, people that had time that they didn't post,
Yay.
and they to appear. Hey, Jose, you're alive. Blah blah blah. And one day, it came one guy,
Mhm.
and, and I saw a guy that came to me and said, "Hey, Mr. Pereira, I grew up in San Tomé, and when I
Mhm.
saw he's an American, he's an
Mhm.
American."
Mhm.
I said, "Oh, who is this guy?" So I began to Google him, and it appeared that this guy was born and raised in San Tomé 10 years before me. 10 years before me. So we begin to get connected through Facebook, and one day I had like 4 months that I came back, and one day he
Mhm.
contacted me and he said, "You know, Jose, all the Americans that we lived in San Tome during those years, we meet every year here in the US. We have a
Nice.
big meeting and we do it in Austin. We do it in Austin every April." So
Mhm.
that year, I went in April to Austin with my daughter to that big meeting, and I met a lot of Americans. They grew up in Venezuela, and
Mhm.
they were Venezuelan born. They were
Mhm.
born in Venezuela, and it was really funny because these were American guys eating arepas, eating capas, singing Venezuelan song with a Venezuelan flag because they were Venezuelan.
Yes.
So these guys, this year I went this year again, the second time this April I went back. So
Nice.
there was a lot of ties with the US. And
Mhm.
this is something that for me today that they're in Venezuela, and we're going to talk now about that. There is a communist regime there. They hate the U.S. They have problems with the U.S. And that's not what the Venezuelan was. We were very tight with the Americans. Our
Uh-huh.
customs are very, very similar to American. I'm going to tell some story that you're going to laugh about that.
Okay. I can't wait to hear it. I know about the arepa one.
Well, let me say, you know, because during those years, I'm talking the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and maybe the 80s. Why the 80s they finished? Because during the end of the 70s, maybe
Mhm.
1978, I believe, there was a president of Venezuela called Carlos Andres Perez. Any Venezuelan that's hearing this will remember this. He
Mhm.
nationalized the oil and gas industry.
Okay.
So he created, because there were all American companies working there. So there
Yes.
were, for example, where I lived in San Tome, that was run by a company called Gulf Oil Stream. That is from here from Texas, the Gulf.
Mhm. Mhm.
There were, for example, in the Maracaibo Lake, there were two operators. One was a company called Mobil, that today is ExxonMobil,
Yes.
and there was another one that was the Shell. Okay, and there was much more company. There was Conoco, there was Sunoco, Amoco, Sinclair. A lot of American companies were working in Venezuela.
Yes.
The point was that when this president decided to nationalize Venezuela, the oil and gas,
Mhm.
he converted those American companies in Venezuelan companies. And for example, the Gulf in Venezuela was called Mene Grande. That was the name that they used in Venezuela, Mene Grande. And Mene Grande became a Venezuelan oil company called Mene Ven. Mene Ven, because Ven for Venezuela. I
Mhm.
began to work in Mene Ven. My first job was in Mene Ven. So
Okay.
when I was graduated, I began to work in Meneven. So I began to work in Meneven once the Venezuelan oil and gas industry was nationalized. So that's my childhood story, being living in Venezuela. And let me tell you, our childhood was very typical, like any American here. Bicycles,
Mhm.
you know, going to the hills and having a tree in the house. You know, very very typical, very typical.
Mhm, mhm.
But that's childhood where I grew up.
Wow. It sounds like it was a very prosperous time in Venezuela.
Venezuela, unfortunately, today was a very prosperous country. Venezuela had a standard of living very similar to the U.S. Because,
Mhm,
for example, I lived in that camp in San Tome. What the Americans did, that they created, like part of the benefits that they give to the employees. They
mhm,
created some big grocery stores, like a kind of a Costco, very similar
mhm,
to a Costco, big warehouse. So this big warehouse, the employees have a card that is kind of like a credit card of Costco, you know. So
mhm.
you were entitled to buy groceries in those stores. Those stores were called commissaries. Commissaries. And in
Oh, the
Spanish, they call it,
commissary.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, commissary, but they call it commissary. Commissary. Because they transform everything was Spanglish, you know. And commissary
Com
became after that to commissariato. So they
Okay,
begin to call it commissariatos.
okay.
Commissary, a commissary became commissariato. So what
Mhm,
happened with those commissaries? That all the food and the groceries came from here, from the U.S. Everyone
okay.
came from here from the U.S. And for example, there comes something that is really funny for us, the Venezuelan. Every Venezuelan that hear this will laugh because the only country in Latin America that calls the popcorn cotufa is Venezuela.
Cotufa.
All the countries call them palomitas de maíz, correct? Like Mexico,
Mhm,
they
mhm,
call them
mhm,
palomitas de maíz.
mhm.
Why we call them cotufas? Because in those commissaries, the people that work there, they brought like this corn that you fried to make the popcorn, you know, and they brought it in some big bags, okay?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
those bags had outside, they came with a word that said corn to fry. So the Venezuelan didn't know how to say corn to fry, and they began to say cotufa, cotufa, and
I love that.
that's why in Venezuela everybody calls the popcorn cotufa, cotufa. It comes from that.
That's a cute story. I love it. Listening to salsa, and I know Hector Lavoe, he was a guy that was in the 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
remember he mentions Venezolano in one of his songs. Do you remember Cheche Cole?
Cheche Colegio, of course. You
Where
know
he,
what happened? Because
uh-huh,
Venezuela, during those years, the 70s and the 80s,
uh-huh,
because it was a wealthy country, and Venezuela was like the door of the entry of Latin America. So anybody that wanted to be somebody in Latin America, a singer, an actress, anything, the
mhm.
first stop was Venezuela. For example, uh, Juan Gabriel was discovered in Venezuela.
I didn't know that.
Yes, he was discovered in Venezuela because
That's nice.
there was a famous program that was like the Ed Sullivan Show. He was a
Mhm,
guy called Amador Bendayan. It's
mhm.
very similar that that program that was in Mexico, Siempre en Domingo. Well,
Siempre en domingo.
but
Ajá.
okay, this was in Saturday. Was Sábado Sensacional. Was
Okay.
Siempre en Domingo was Mexico. Venezuela was Sábado Sensacional. Was the same format. The
Mhm,
same format.
mhm.
So Amador Bendayan, he always brought this international artist. Juan
Nice.
Gabriel began singing there in Venezuela. He began his career either in that program. Rocío Dúrcal, the very famous Spanish
Mhm.
singer, she began her career there. Camilo Sesto,
I
many of the
I
famous
remember Camilo
of
Sesto.
those years, Jose Jose, all
Jose
these
Jose.
guys, those guys begin singing in Venezuela. Yes,
Wow.
they begin there, and during those years, all the big rock bands they always played in Venezuela. I was in the university in 1980 because I studied from 1980 to 1985. So
Mhm.
during those 5 years, every weekend, all the rock band came. There is a big concert place in Venezuela that is called El, ay, El Poliedro. El Poliedro. Okay,
Mhm.
so all these guys always came to talk to sing to El Poliedro. I can,
Mhm.
I saw Queen in El Poliedro. I saw Kiss. I saw Michael Jackson. I saw
Wow.
Tina Turner. I,
That's
I
amazing.
saw Barry White. I
Oh, nice.
saw Super Trump.
Uh-huh.
I saw all those Led
Mhm.
Zeppelin, all those big rock bands,
Those are classics.
all those classic. They Rolling Stones, Rolling Stones. The Beatles, no, Beatles never went to Venezuela, but all these bands they played in Venezuela. I remember. I was like 18, 19 years old by that time, and I was a very big fan of rock. So every weekend they came. So every weekend I was seeing those rock bands in Venezuela. Very
Which one
common. Very common.
which which one was your favorite?
Well, one of the most favorite was Led Zeppelin. I really love Led Zeppelin.
Ooh.
Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. And Pink Floyd.
Mhm. So you're a rockero at heart.
I'm a rockero. I'm a rockero. I'm gonna say something here that I never had said that, but I begin my collection of the Hard Rock Cafe T-shirt
Mhm.
during maybe in the 90s, and I stayed all my life collecting those T-shirts. I have more than 80 T-shirts of Hard Rock Cafe all over the world.
Wow. Do you have San Diego's?
I have San Diego, I have Hollywood,
Look at
I
you.
have Los Angeles, I have Pasadena. Yeah, I have all those. Yes, yes, I have San
Oh,
Diego because I was
oh.
in the San Diego. The San Diego is in the bay, in the pier, in in,
Mhm.
in the pier. There is where the Hara Cafe is. So I have
Yes.
all these places.
Mhm. Wow. So you're a collector because you love the hard rock.
I'm a collector. Yes, I'm a
You know,
collector.
I when I was thinking of, the song that, Hector Lavoe sang, and in it he says, "Oye, tú sentado allá," right? He says, "There you are sitting over there. Parece venezolano." He says, "You look like you're Venezuelan."
Because Venezuela, but that time had several things. First, as I said, there was all these international bands and all these singers and actors. They went into Venezuela, but at the same time, all the Venezuela had a very robust TV industry.
Mhm,
So there was two big TV channels that is kind of say here ABC and NBC. It was
mhm,
Venevisión and Radio Caracas. There was the competition, Venevisión and Radio Caracas.
okay,
All these channels they begin to produce telenovelas, and the Venezuelan telenovelas was the most famous of the world of that time.
okay,
Most of the telenovelas that today they still are played in Mexico, in those or Peru or Colombia, whatever, are the same telenovelas that the Venezuelan produced maybe 30, 40 years ago that they have been recycled the stories. But there was very famous telenovelas. I remember there was a telenovela called Topacio.
mhm,
Topacio was so famous that was aired in hundreds of countries all over the world.
wow,
So the Venezuelan telenovelas were very famous. It became so famous that all when the big the Hollywood the industry began to translate the production to Spanish, all the translators were Venezuelan because the
mm,
Venezuelan accent is neutral. Is more neutral. We don't have that tone like Argentina or you Mexico. That yeah, we are very neutral in our speech. So they begin to hire Venezuelan translators,
mhm,
and what's funny because I remember sometimes I was traveling, and I was, for example, in some place eating in a restaurant with my wife, and
mhm,
somebody heard my accent, and they came and said, I love how you talk because you talk like the telenovelas. Because the telenovelas were from Venezuela by the time.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
That
That's
people
pretty cool.
recognize the neutral accent because that was what they saw in the TV, the telenovelas from Venezuela.
Mhm,
And you know that I can continue saying Venezuela was everything that was going in the world, it was happening in Venezuela. You
mhm.
know, the big was the time of the big discotheques. You know, disco. It was the disco that Venezuela had big discos. The the music industry began to be booming. There are a lot of
Did they have those disco dancers?
yeah, yeah, and it appeared some famous Venezuelan singers like today they're still there, like Jose Luis Rodriguez. He come from the era.
Uh-huh.
Franco De Vita. Uh, um, ah, Armando. No, I forgot the name of this. Ricardo Montaner. Sorry, Ricardo Montaner.
Oh, I remember Ricardo
Ricardo
Montaner.
Montaner, all these art singers come from that time. That was in the 80s. So
Mhm,
because the oil and gas was so booming, that all the big companies, they had headquarters in Venezuela for Latin America.
mhm,
It began to be so big by that time that that all the advertising industry that was creating the commercials,
mhm.
all the pilots of the commercial for all Latin America were shoot it in Venezuela. So they
Mm,
did a pilot in Venezuela and then they sent the replica to all Latin America. So you saw the first commercials in Venezuela, and then they did it in Colombia, in Peru, in Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, but because the headquarters were in Venezuela. All the big factories, all the big car producers, the headquarters of Mitsubishi, the headquarters of Toyota, the headquarters of Fiat, Renault, all of them were in Venezuela.
I could see why, because Venezuela had all the money.
Yeah, but nothing is forever. And one
Mhm,
day, the people get bored and begin to think that the politicians were scamming them. And one day appear a magician that begin to talk with the people, very fancy, that he was gonna be good with the poor, blah 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 blah. And that guy was Hugo Rafael Chavez. You know,
uh-huh.
so that's how Chavez came to take the power in 1998, and they're still in the power today, 25 years after, and they ruined the economy. Unfortunately, they ruined the country.
Wow. It kinda makes me think of, how Hitler, when he came into power, he used his charisma, right? When
Same thing. This morning, Angelica, I went to I attended an event. By the
mhm.
way, I'm a group. It's a group that I attend with my friend that he lived in Venezuela 10 years before. Today, I go to a group with him. I assist in a group with him. By the way, also Charles Hunt assist in the group. I saw Charles this morning there. Yeah, yeah, we are kind of buddies.
Uh-huh,
Okay,
uh-huh,
well, it came a guy that he was talking about trying to tell how the all this country has been ruined by the communists, and he was talking about all the patterns that these uh, uh, what they have been following in Cuba, in China, in Russia, in all these countries. And when I saw the all the things, I was remembering because by that time I was living in Venezuela, and I
mhm,
saw what the guy was talking. I saw all that coming. So you never thought that that could happen. I remember that when Chavez came to the office, one day a friend told me Venezuela is going to become another Cuba, and I was angry. I said, no, that's not going to happen, my friend. We are a wealthy country. We are modern people. We are very well educated. That's not going to happen. It happened. It
mm,
it happened. And the bad news is that today, not only the economy is ruined, all the big diaspora of Venezuelan all over the world. During the 50s and
Mhm.
up to the maybe the 80s, Venezuela was a big receptor of immigrants. A
Mhm.
lot of immigrants came to Venezuela during the 50s. After the finishing of the World War II, we had a big immigration of people that came from Italy,
Okay.
Spain, Portugal, Lebanon, Syria, and yeah, basically those four nations. So those four nations, for example, the Italian begin to be the builders, the constructors.
Mhm.
Portuguese begin to handle the bakeries,
Mhm.
the Spanish begin to run the restaurants. They became something they call the tascas. It's very popular in Galicia. In Galicia, the tascas come from there. They're similar to the English pubs,
Okay.
small restaurant where you drink and you have some pulp or whatever. Okay, they brought all these tradition, and the people from Lebanon and Syria, they begin to be when begin to run the stores, all the stores, because that's
Mhm.
what they do. That they were merchants. So what's funny, because all the people from Lebanon and Syria, in Venezuela, they converted in only one, because the people thought that they were the same, and
Mhm.
we begin to call them the Turcos. Like if they were from Turkey, we call them the Turcos. So in Venezuela, the people from the Middle East, they call them the Turcos. Turcos. That is the name they use. And all these traditions begin to be part of the Venezuelan tradition. So now we're having American tradition because of the oil and gas, and now we're having a Spanish tradition, Portuguese tradition, Italian tradition, and tradition from the Lebanese. So they brought all their culture. So we have a lot of the part of our culture. There's very common there, and that's why all
Mhm.
that mix of cultures, because now people from those countries begin to be married with the Venezuelan ladies, and the babies that were born were very beautiful. That's why Venezuela has so much Miss Venezuelas, because
Yes.
it's the mix. It's the mix. You see the Miss Venezuela, they are tall, beautiful, white hair, blonde haired, beautiful. Because, and you see that all the last name maybe are Italian, maybe are Spanish, maybe are Portuguese, maybe are from the Middle East, because it's the mixture that we have in Venezuela.
Mhm. Yeah, when I went to, Caracas and with my sisters because we went on a cruise, and I must say it is a very beautiful culture. A lot of
Yeah,
beautiful people.
Venezuela, the people of Venezuela are very friendly. Always we are joking. Always we are trying to be resilient. We even in the worst moment, we are always having a good face. Always are trying to see the things in a positive way. This part of that is embedding in the culture. I can tell you, part of the things when I went to my captivity that I really couldn't handle is because that it's part of my culture. You
Mhm.
are always are making jokes of the bad things that are happening to you, so you don't complain. You
Yes.
make jokes about that, and you try to see things. Even if you're going in a bad moment, you always try to see it positive. And people of Venezuela are really friendly. Are amigos, a lot are very friendly.
I gathered that. We hit it off as friends right away, right, amigo?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm
Uh,
saying all of this, Angelica, because maybe the people that can be hearing this, or maybe will hear it after in the recording, most of the Venezuelan people today doesn't know this story, because I'm talking that since 1998 the Chavistas are in the power, so they have more than 25 years. So the young people always
mhm.
has been is Chavez and Maduro. They don't know nothing more. So they
Mm,
don't know what happened before. I remember when I was in Venezuela during my hostage situation, the guard that we have in the jail, they were young people. They were guys, young.
mm, mhm,
And sometimes I was talking with them, and when I was talking this about what, because I was trying to make them understand that they were supporting a regime that was had ruined the economy, and
mhm.
then they deserve a better future. So I was trying to kind of change their mindset. I don't know if I ever did it, but I was trying to make them change their mindset, to make them try to at least try to understand that there is a better future. It's a better future for them in a change of regime. And today, this is the problem that is happening in Venezuela now, in this moment, because now there is a big fight between the opposition, that the government doesn't want to recognize that the opposition won the elections. They
Mhm.
did a big fraud. And now this is a very big situation that is going on today in Venezuela.
So there's a big fraud.
A
So
big fraud, a massive fraud.
so 25 years ago, you remember how it used to be, and you never thought that anything like that could happen.
We say always in Spanish, éramos felices y no lo sabíamos. We were happy and we didn't know it. Yeah, because the people were, when the people decided to vote for Chavez was because they were sick and tired of the Venezuelan politics. The politics all over the world. They lied. The corruption, all this stuff. But I can tell you that people today will prefer that what happened. This is even worse. What's going today is even worse.
Guatemala, Guatepeor.
Guatemala to Guatepeor. Yes, that's exactly what happened. And today, and the in the election that was run, mm, it's going to be 2 months in this weekend. The election was 2 months ago. It was in the July 28th was the election in Venezuela.
Mhm.
The opposition won for with almost 70% of the vote, but more than 5 million of Venezuela that live outside the country couldn't vote. If those people who could have the opportunity to vote, maybe he would have won for 90 to 10, 90%. So everybody vote against Maduro because the people today hate him.
Mhm.
They hate him. So now the people are trying to throw him out, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, when you were, called to go back to Venezuela for that meeting, how long was Maduro already in power?
Maduro had like 4 years in power because I went to that meeting in 2017, and Maduro took office in 2013 because Chavez died in 2013. So when Chavez died, they did a fake election. This guy has been winning fake elections since then. He won. He stole the election in 2013. He stole the election in 2018, and he stole the election now in 2024. So he has stole three elections.
Wow, we. So you had no idea, with all this stuff going on, that it would have been that bad, right?
No, I already, because what happened to me when I was assigned to the oil and gas. I was assigned to international project. So my career was always done with international companies. So I was not so connected to what was going on in the reality of the day to day Venezuela. So I heard in the news and all, but I was in another thing. So when I came here to the U.S. to work with Cirgo, I knew there was something going, but I never saw that could affect me because I was not a politician. I was an executive that I did my career there. I
Mhm.
knew that was going on something in Venezuela, but you never saw that could affect. I never thought that could affect me, and But now that it happened this to me, and I had the opportunity to know all the political prisoners that are in Venezuela, because they became my friends. I lived with them 5 years.
Mm.
So I know all the political prisoners that are in Venezuela. So I know how they think. I know how they love their country. They try to change things there. So I'm more, more conscious of what really is going on there today. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So I remember you telling me that this can happen to anybody who's a tourist when they go to a foreign country and there's some political unrest going that they might not know about.
Well, even that all the situation is going in Venezuela today, they captured 4 Americans in this week, in this past 2 weeks. 4 new Americans are now hostage in Venezuela. What the Americans were doing there, I don't know. No clue. So what has to do an American going to one of these countries today? It's ridiculous.
Mm.
It's
Mhm.
ridiculous. It's not safe. I read today that France and Spain, and I believe England, released a statement that they're not allowing to their national to fly to Venezuela during this situation that's happening now, because they are in risk in this moment.
Mhm. Mhm.
Any American that go to Venezuela in this moment is in total risk. In total risk.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do they capture um how do they capture people so that they could
Let me tell you what they're doing. You're gonna laugh, but
I think this is important for people to know
okay.
so
You
that
know
they
what
could be
they're doing?
aware.
They're hiring ladies, and they send it to the Caribbean island, Aruba, Curacao, and you can be playing in a casino in Aruba or Curacao, and then you meet this lady, because these ladies are beautiful, and these ladies seduce you. They
Mhm.
seduce you, and then they invite you to go to Venezuela, and there's where they capture you. That's what they're doing.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
what these guys are doing now. Yeah.
Here they thought that they were gonna date this beautiful woman, and then they end up get
When
becoming
they come to the airport, they're waiting for them. Yes.
wow.
Because they don't have nothing to negotiate. The only thing is taking people and negotiating that, because they negotiated us, and after us, 1 year after, they negotiated 10 more Americans. So they had done two negotiations. So they know it works. They know it works. So now they have 4 more Americans. They're going to ask negotiation for them. Believe me.
And what do they negotiate? Is it money? Is it
No, no.
or
Remember,
or
Venezuela
sanctions,
is
lifting
under, yeah,
sanctions?
they are under severe sanctions, personal sanctions, and they have some kind of money traps. So maybe they ask to get release some money, release some sanction, or maybe they have some partners that are in jail here, so they ask them to get released. So they ask for hard stuff,
Mhm.
big stuff, and very hard negotiations, very hard.
So there's a lot of other countries that also have this problem, right? That people need to be aware of.
Because all the communist countries do the same. I'm talking about countries like China, Russia, Iran, Syria, Afghanistan, North Korea, Cuba. All of them do the same. Any American that go to any of these countries are in risk. Are in risk.
Wow. I was in Cuba, I think in 2016. I
Well,
got in
because
big
the
trouble.
people love Cuba, because Cuba is nice. I know Cuba. I have been in Cuba. Cuba has wonderful beaches. The people are very nice, and very nice rum, and you dance and whatever. But you are in risk, and you don't know it. You don't know it.
Wow.
You can
That's
become a target. You can become a target.
yeah, I saw a couple of weeks ago some US sailors, I believe that they disembarked in Turkey and then all of a sudden s- a mob approached and they put a pillowcase over one of the guys' heads and I said, "Oh my goodness, that's scary."
Because the problem is that this is a. I always say that this is something that can be really a very a national security issue because you can be traveling any part of the world and you can become a target. I'm not going to say that all the countries are like that. For example, if you go to Spain or France, you have low probability that something this happen. But if you decided to go to Russia, it can happen. Or being in China. There are people here in the US that love to go to China to do business. They're in risk. They don't know, but they're in risk.
Mhm, mhm.
1 week ago was released a guy from China that had 18 years in jail. 18.
Oh, wow.
18 years. Was released 1 week ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And
It's not worth it.
the people don't know because the people don't talk about this. This the problem is that people don't talk about this, and you know that is not everything because this is the part of the picture that the Americans happening to in Venezuela. But the problem is that what's happening to the Venezuelans, that the people has left the country because they are starving, they don't have money. So
Mhm.
what they do is they travel to other countries. For example, they have been coming here to the US. The bad news that can come good people, that but also can come bad people, like what
Mhm.
is happening today here in the US.
Oh,
So
yes. I've
it-
been seeing that
it's
in the
happening in
news.
Colorado, in New York, here in Texas, in California,
In Beverly Hills,
Beverly Hills,
in
yeah,
Miami.
Miami, New York, here in Texas. Bad people, really bad people, because in Venezuela there are kind of some gangs, are gangs.
Uh-huh.
They call it that. There's a very famous gang called the Tren de Aragua that has become famous here in the U.S. because they came
Tren
here.
tren de
Tren, Tren de Aragua, train, Tren de Aragua, because Aragua is a place in Venezuela, it's a
uh-huh,
city, it's a state,
uh-huh.
Estado Aragua. These guys are from that state, and I don't know why they call the train, but it's called the Tren de Aragua. It's a very dangerous gang, and they came here to the U.S. They're here in the U.S.
And what they're doing certain things that are synonymous with what they were doing when they were in Venezuela, right?
They're doing the same. I have a friend in Venezuela that
Uh-huh.
he told me because I have friends. I talk with them, and
Uh-huh.
he told me that the insecurity in Venezuela has reduced because all the bad guys has flew the country. So the bad guys are now outside Venezuela.
Oh my because there's no food over there, right? Because
There's no food. There's no food. So now they're robbing here in the U.S. They're robbing in Chile. They're going to Colombia. They go to Peru. So now these countries are suffering because of that. And this is one of the problems that regime is creating because they have been promoting this. They have promoted this. What these guys are really mean. They release people from the jails and they say, okay, you are free, but go to the US. And they give money to come to the US because this is the
Mhm.
way they can push the people to come here and to begin to bother the Americans here, you know.
Oh, wow. That's the technique that they're using.
It's a technique. It's a technique, yes.
Yes. Yes. So now, what do you say about all this stuff that's going on? What do people need to be aware of when they travel? Because they say you could look online and then they have a place where they tell you this is a place that it has a travel warning,
Yeah.
but some places don't have a travel warning,
Well,
right?
that's true. That's true. And I believe this is something that unfortunately have to be more severe legislation to control this because some countries don't have that warning. Venezuela has a warning. So any American that goes to Venezuela, sorry to say, is a stupid. It's a stupid. It's a stupid.
You are something else.
It's a stupid decision going there today.
Mhm,
Today it's a stupid decision
mhm, mhm.
because these guys really they
They're
again
looking for ponds.
they take them for pounds, yes, because they know that it had worked in the past. They work with us, they work with the other guys, and they will continue doing it as far as they can do it. So talking continue talking about Venezuela, because for me the most important story to tell is what Venezuela was in the past and what it can become in the future. I'm
Mhm.
not trying to think in the present, because the present at some point, is this is gonna, I don't know when, but this is gonna finish in some point. I don't know when, but
Mhm.
that's the story. Empires disappear, and this guy at some point are gonna disappear. I don't know. It's gonna be this year, next year. I don't know. If you ask me,
Mhm.
I don't have a crystal ball to know it. But
Mhm.
what I know is what will happen in Venezuela when these guys are gone, because Venezuela, the assets are there, the crude oil is there.
Mhm.
The people are not there because they are outside. But once these guys are gone, many people will return to Venezuela.
Mhm.
So this is economy that once there comes a change of regime, it will flourish very soon, because Venezuela has a lot of resources, has
Mhm.
a lot of minerals, because not only has oil and gas, it has gold, it has diamonds, diamonds.
Really?
Yes, gold and diamonds.
I
It,
didn't know that.
it has this very this mineral called coltan, that they use for the microchips. Well,
Oh, cobalt. Cobalt.
coltan,
Coltan. Okay.
coltan, where they discover a big mining of coltan in Venezuela,
Mm.
and has wonderful natural resources. The people don't know, but one of the beautiful beaches of the world is in Venezuela, Los Roques.
Mm.
Los Roques is a beach that it can be similar like Tahiti, you know,
Mhm.
like the Fiji Islands. That type of island is Los Roques.
Wow.
It's a beautiful island, beautiful, beautiful. If you Google it, you will find pictures. It's
I'm gonna
super.
Google it now.
Well, you Google Los Roques, and you will
Uh-huh.
get, it's jaw dropping the beauty it is. We have the Margarita Island. Margarita Island is a wonderful place. Margarita Island, the Margarita Island, it was called the most, how is that, the most beautiful hidden jewel of the Caribbean. Because
Mm.
the people talk about Aruba, Curacao, all this Puerto Rico. Nobody talks about Margarita, because again, Margarita is in Venezuela and this regime is there, so the people don't go there. But Margarita is beautiful.
Mm.
And Margarita is beautiful, and it's very well developed. It has very big malls, big highways. It's a very, very, very modern island. Very modern.
Nice, nice. So, tell us how you met your beautiful wife, Mervis.
I but the story is that my dad, he passed when I was 14. So my mom, she raised up single, but and I come, because I come from a third generation of oil and gas worker, because my dad was a oil and gas engineer. He graduated here in Tulsa. My mom, when she was raised in Maracaibo, her dad, my granddad, he was Dutch. He was
Mhm.
Dutch. He came with the oil and gas during the oil and gas beginning of the production in the 1930s. He came to the
Okay.
Maracaibo Lake from the Netherlands in to work in the oil and gas, and he met my grandma, that she was a nurse in the oil and gas. So my grandma, she was a nurse working in the hospital of the mobile.
Mhm.
So my
Mhm.
granddad, he came with Shell, and one day he get an accident, and she attended him, and
Mhm.
they knew themselves, and they get at the end they get married, and then came my mom. So
Mhm.
my mom my dad was working in Maracaibo. He's not from Maracaibo, but he was working in Maracaibo, and he met my mom, and they get married. They get married, and then we came here to the U.S. And when I was 12, I came back to flew back to Venezuela. So when I was there, like 2 years after my dad passed.
Uh-huh.
So my mom, she was working she was secretary. She was administrative assistant,
Mhm.
and she continued working. And when I finished my high school, I was supposed to go to study because there was a very famous program that this president that nationalized the oil and gas, Carlos Andrés Pérez, he created a program for the student to study all over the world.
Mhm.
So he paid you to go to study all over the world. So I was going to go to Germany. So I was going to go to study in Stuttgart. So
Mhm.
I was going to go to study in Stuttgart. But I began to think my mom was alone. I didn't want to leave her alone. So I decided to change, and I decided to begin to study in Venezuela. So I graduated in Venezuela. So I enrolled in the Universidad de Oriente in Venezuela, because I wanted to stay near to my mom. Okay. So now,
Oh, that's a good son.
well, because she was alone. She was alone. So I changed my life. But I met Mervis, because that's how I could meet Mervis, because one day I was coming from the university, and one of my close friends told me that they have opened a choral, to sing. They opened a choral, and the choral was called Orfeón Meneven. It was
Mhm.
Orfeón, Orfeón Meneven, because was Meneven, the company.
Uh-huh.
And when I saw that, I always love to sing. I love to sing. And I said, I would like to be there. So I came to the Orpheum during the weekend. So because I was during the week in the university, and during the week I flew to my house. So during the week I began to go to that Orpheum. And Mary
Mhm.
was singing there. And
Mhm.
I had by that time 18 years, and she had 16. And we met
Mhm.
there. We met there, and we got engaged. And since then, we have 43 years together.
Congratulations.
We have 40
Now,
years together, yeah.
what song did you sing?
Well, that was classic song of that you were singing in the churches, very very hallelujah, hallelujah. This type of
Okay.
thing. But after that, we always kept singing, and it was funny, because when I began to work in the oil and gas, I began to work in a Japanese joint venture in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
In the 90s. So when I
Uh-huh.
was assigned to the Japanese company, they came to Venezuela in 1990. So by
Mhm.
that time, there was no sushi. Nobody knew sushi. There was no sushi. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
Really?
No, because in Venezuela, nothing of that existed. So when this guy came, and I began to work with the Japanese, one day they invited me they did like a party.
Mhm.
They did
Mhm.
a like party, and I attended the party. And I remember that the guy, they took like it was like a long play, uh, that you could play the long plays, and they put that long play, and they connected to a TV, and then it began to appear the image, and you could sing with a microphone. And I told the guy, what is that? And they told me, no, this is called karaoke. Called karaoke. That was the first time I heard a karaoke. So I say karaoke, and I begin to sing it because I love to sing. I begin to sing, and I begin to use to sing with them in the karaoke, because the Japanese love karaoke. They love it. They love it.
Mhm.
Japan, everybody sings. It's
Yes.
it's very common. Everybody sings, and everybody loves karaoke. And well, that's how I begin. I connected with this culture. I remember I began to be very close friend to a Japanese guy. His name was Iwakami. So Mary became to be very friend of his wife. Her name was Yayoi Iwakami. So Yayoi became so friend of Mary that she began to invite her to cook, and Mary began to cook Japanese food. so so she learned to cook Japanese food,
Oh, Japanese food is so good.
and she's a very good Japanese cooker. Let me tell
Mervis could make everything.
you. Because in Venezuela she had a restaurant. She was a restaurant owner.
Wow.
She has her own restaurant in Venezuela. When before we came here, she opened a restaurant. She had a restaurant. Yes.
Was it comida venezolana?
Comida venezolana. We had a restaurant that we had one of the first online restaurant in Venezuela in 2005. It was like almost 20 years ago. She opened a restaurant that was called comoencasa.com. Como en casa is like in home, because
Mhm.
she cooked like in home. Was like a homemade food. And she began to be successful.
Let's hear the entrees that were on the menu.
Let me tell you, for example, there is a famous plate in Venezuela called pabellón.
Mhm.
Pabellón is very similar to what in Cuba they call la ropa vieja.
Mhm.
It's shredded meat. They do shredded meat with black beans and rice and plantain. So
Mm.
plantain in Venezuela is called maduro.
Mhm.
It's like a banana. It's more sweet like a banana. So that dish is the national dish, the pabellón. Pabellón. There's another dish that is called um, ah, let me remember.
I'm gonna go to LA and have myself pabellón at a
Pabellón is very popular.
restaurant.
For arepa, everybody knows arepa right now. Let me tell you that arepa were known right now because a lot of the diaspora of the Venezuela that is all over the world, then the arepa has become more famous. But arepa has been forever in Venezuela. There is a very big debate. Yesterday I was joking with your friend from Colombia. There's always a big debate between the Colombian and Venezuela. Where are the origin of the arepa? The Colombian, they say that arepa are original from Colombia. We said that it's from Venezuela, and we never can agree. It's like a Christian and a Muslim saying who is the. So you have the Colombian arepa and we have the Venezuelan arepa. We have another food that is called cachapa.
Mhm.
The cachapa is sweet corn. They do like a waffle, like a pancake. It's very similar like a pancake. It's like
Mhm.
a pancake, but it's done with sweet corn. It's very delicious. So you eat it with you put butter, and then you put white cheese, and you eat it, and you wait that the cheese melt, and it's very delicious.
I like the way you go like this with the melting.
And we have something called the yaca in December. The yaca is
Mhm.
similar to the Guatemala. Guatemala has the tamale of Guatemala is very similar to the yaca of Venezuela,
Mm.
because the yaca is not like the Mexican tamale that is small. The yaca is big.
Mhm.
Is also with a sleeve of plantain, but it's big.
Mhm.
It's like this. And we have the tequeños. I don't know if you ever had eat the tequeños.
No.
The
Mm-mm.
tequeño, well, the tequeño is one of the most famous plate in a party in Venezuela. Tequeño is like a cheese sticks. It's like a cheese stick, not like the U.S. cheese stick, because the cheese stick here is like covered and fried. No, they cover in some kind of wheat. They dress it. They dress it and they dress it, and then they fry it, and it's
Mhm.
very delicious. And in Venezuela, there is not a possibility to have a party if you don't have tequeño. Everybody has to have tequeño.
That's
It's
good to know.
a must. It's a must.
I'm gonna have to try all of these out, all of them.
Another thing that is very typical to the Venezuela is the drinks.
Mhm.
Venezuela, but in some years ago, one of the most whiskey drinker countries of the world. Whiskey, but the whiskey, but not the American whiskey. It's the Scotch, the British Scotch.
Okay.
Okay, and let me tell you why. Because this story is true. Because I heard it from one of the guy that you know during the World War II, Venezuela supplied fuel oil to the bunkers of the Americans, the British, and all the allies.
Mhm.
And the British, Winston Churchill didn't have to pay the Venezuela government by that time all that money he owed for the bunker. And one day they did an agreement, and the only thing that he could supply was scotch. So he paid with a scotch. So the scotch began to come to Venezuela in the 50s, and
Mhm.
those brands that came to Venezuela, the All Par, Checkers, uh, uh, um, uh, Master, and Johnny Walker became so popular in Venezuela that everybody began to drink whiskey. If everybody in Venezuela drink whiskey, Venezuela didn't drink beer. We had good beers and good rum, but we were whiskey drinkers. The Scotch began to be so popular in Venezuela,
Mhm.
cannot imagine any party without a good Scotch. And it was not Scotch; it had to be a good Scotch.
Mhm.
But Johnny Walker has several levels of quality. You
Mhm.
have the red label, you have the black label, you have the gold label, you have the green label.
Which one did you like?
Well, the black label, because that's what we drink in Venezuela. Nobody drinks a red label. Red label is a 8 years whiskey. The black label is a 12 years. And the gold label is 15 and the green is 18. So it's higher quality. So in Venezuela, if you go to a party, you will remember the party for the whiskey they served. So if you don't take care of serving a good whiskey, they will remember always your party because you serve a bad whiskey. And believe me, it's like that. I remember I had friends
Mm.
that you say, "Do you remember when John and Mary were married 30 years ago?" Yeah, they serve a very bad scotch. Everybody remember the scotch. Everybody. You don't take care of the food, you don't take care of nothing. You take care is that you have to have a good scotch. So this is the way
It
in Venezuela. The people, when you're organizing a wedding or a birthday or whatever party you're organizing, you always take care to have a good whiskey. Always. So it's part of the Venezuelan tradition.
I love it. I love learning about Venezuela's traditions, the foods, what happened with the government, and the beautiful different places to go. Um,
Venezuela has incredible places. You have the beaches. For example, where I live is a place called Lecheria that is a beach town. It's,
mhm.
I have the beach like 1 mile from my house. 1 mile.
Wow.
Literally have the beach in front of my house. So and it's a beautiful beaches. But you
Mm,
have mountains. You have these big waterfalls. There's a very famous waterfall called Salto Los Angeles.
mhm.
Angel, that is beautiful. We have jungles. We have
Ooh, jungles.
white snow mountains.
Mm,
We have white snow mountains. We have even like a small desert there. We
mhm,
have even a small desert. We have beautiful rivers, beautiful, big river. There is a river called Orinoco River that is one of the biggest river in all Latin America, the Orinoco River.
uh-huh,
Very similar to the Rio Grande that is big.
uh-huh.
So it's very big. So we have a lot of beautiful sites to visit in Venezuela. So the sites are beautiful, and because the people are so friendly, the
Yes.
tourism there before all this stuff was booming because people love to go to Venezuela because the
Yes.
people are really friendly and always take care of you. We always joke because when you become friend to everybody in Venezuela, you call them compadres.
Mhm.
he became your compadre. Everybody's a compadre.
Mhm, mhm.
He's, he's your like your godfathers.
I love it. I think that we're gonna end on that note because we're already at 6:35. We went
Oh,
5 minutes over.
we have 1 hour talking.
Yeah, it's too much fun listening about Venezuela. There's so much about it. We're gonna have to do a part 2. But, I want you to give a message to everybody because I know with the things happening, around the United States that people might have a bad, um, judging, with Venezolanos
Yes.
because of what they've heard. What do you wanna tell the people about
The
your country?
people are friendly, are very well educated. What Venezuela had one of the highest quality education of Latin America. The people of Venezuela are very highly educated. The immigration that today is here in the U.S., you can find maybe 80 or 90% of them are professionals. Are
Mhm,
professional. Those guys that are doing bad things don't represent Venezuela.
mhm,
They're gangs, they're bad boys, bad guys, but that's not what Venezuelans are. Venezuelan people are hard workers,
mhm.
always have been very successful because it's part of the culture, are very
Yeah,
resilient. So they always are very committed, hard workers, and that's not what we are. So it's unfortunate that people have got that image because of this bad guy, but this is not what the Venezuelan represent.
I know that that's not what they represent because I know you, my friend. You and Mervis.
Yeah.
So I guess we're gonna end the interview for today. I really enjoyed listening to all of this, and, I look forward to another one in the future. Perhaps we'll have Mervis in. We
I
could join.
told her, but she was doing something, so I told her to come back. Next time, second part.
Second part, we'll add Mervis. Make sure you say hello to her.
Okay, thank you.
And I love you guys.
Bye.
And and tell Mervis I love her. Besos y abrazos as well.
Okay, igual. Eso, bye.
Bye-bye, my friend. Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too.